Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Patrick. Hi, everyone.
I'm go. Let's wait a couple of minutes for the others to join. Okay, one sec. All right. So I hope Christmas have been good to you all. You're all spoiled with a lot of presents and almost ready to go to end this so lamentable and sad year next or tomorrow. So, except Thomas, you've all been staying home, or have you traveled, or have you seen your family, relatives?
I'm actually in Italy right now.
Oh,
Living in San Francisco, but I traveled back home for the holidays.
cool. Where are you in Italy?
Near Milan.
Milan. Been many times to Milan. I had some teams working there. It's a really nice city. Really like it.
It is. I'm in a small university town that is 30 miles south of Milan. So it's very convenient. You can drive there, but it's also quiet.
Well, not that
Quiet.
quiet, huh? A lot of activity by night in Milan.
For sure, more than in the US. On the West Coast, everything closes very early,
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the
and we
US.
used to stay up until late here. So it's a different culture.
Different culture, exactly. Okay. Um, so I wanted to start the session with a question I've posted on Slack, but obviously, since it's the Christmas holidays, I guess most of you have been busy traveling and seeing and doing other stuff, nothing related to coding or this channel. Many of you have requested to set the duration of the sessions to 90 minutes instead of 60 minutes. I'm completely available to do that, but I don't want to force the hand of no one because I know some of you maybe have busy schedules or whatever. And so I don't know. I don't know if if it's something that can suit everybody or not. I guess all of you here have already voted, so I won't have any additional answers on the session. It's a shame. Actually, for my part, I'm in holidays until the 12th of January. That means that I have a lot of free time, so I could do more sessions during this time. But obviously, it's also the holidays, so probably you all have already thought about activities and stuff to do during those days? Sorry, Thomas, you were saying you're on mute.
No, I'm actually talking to my wife.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, I will insist again on Slack for people to vote, and then we can decide maybe to have longer sessions or maybe to have more frequent sessions. I think it's important to try to engage a little bit more in the sessions, because until now we've been looking at very general things, JavaScript recap. We're going to see promises today, and I guess we will have time to get back to the application and talk about a little bit of the structure and the architecture on what we can, how we can build it. But then once we start working on it, it's gonna be there are many things to do. So there are a lot of coding, there's a lot of explanation, there's many things to get deep into, and it will take forever. If we just do a 1 hour session per week, it will wait, I don't know, maybe half a year, something like that. I'm not sure that everyone is available for 6 months or this longer period. So that's why I was proposing to have a little bit more intensity in the sessions, if we want to go through all the steps of writing this app. So I guess we'll see. So that said, let's go directly to well, first of all, has anybody of you any doubts or question about the callbacks paradigm that we've seen last week? Is it clear for everyone? Yeah? Okay. Shit. Every week. So, okay, I've read this morning, actually, I've read something what is a little bit interesting. It's a parallel between real life and callbacks, and I thought it was a good explanation or a good metaphor of the callback, and illustrates quite well one of the danger of callbacks. So it's a very easy thing to understand. So you imagine you want to go to your favorite restaurant, and there's no free table at the time you go there. So you don't know what to do. So you ask the waiter, well, can you just, text me if tables freeze up, and then I will go around, and if there is a table free in the next 10 minutes, for example, I can go back if you text me. So basically this is a callback. Okay, that's where the name come from, I guess. So what you do is you give your phone number to the waiter or the waitress, and then you walk away, and basically you wait for your phone to receive a message. Same as the callback function, you just give the callback function to whatever third-party function expecting it, and then you wait for the callback to be called. It is a pretty easy to understand parallel. This parallel is illustrating quite well one of the danger of our callbacks is unintended execution of your callback function. And what I mean by that is, getting back to our restaurant stuff, instead of just pinging you with an SMS because there's a free table, actually the waiter keeps your phone number, and then every now and then they send you an ad or some publicity to go back to the place, or because there's a discount. So basically they are using your phone number for something it was not intended to. So in the world of callback, when you usually make a program and you use callback from a third-party library that maybe you have imported, maybe at the time you've imported the library, the callback function has what you call the signature. It was requested with some parameters, but that might change in the future because the library has been updated or whatever. So then your callback function, maybe you were expecting it to be just called once, and since the library has changed or might have changed, your callback function could be called several times, or it could not be called at all. So what is happening in this case is when you use a callback paradigm with a third-party library, you basically surrender your control of your execution to a third-party library because your code won't proceed any further until the callback function is called, and you don't control when it's called. Okay, so we all do it. There's no problem to do that, but it's a good point to have it in mind. If you find a library that have both promises or callback versions, usually it's a better choice to use promises to avoid these kind of errors that can arise from the library being updated and you not following what has been changed, and then your callback is not called the way you thought it would be called. Okay, so going to promises. So 30 seconds of history. Basically, JavaScript, as you all know it, is single-threaded. That means that you only run one thing at a time. You cannot do parallel execution like in other languages like Java or C or other languages. So we have, the people using JavaScript at the beginning, they had a lot of issues with responsiveness because when you were expecting a response for something that took a lot of time, then the user interface will freeze and you had to wait. And I'm talking, we're in the 90s, okay? So it's not a good thing. So they tried to find a mechanism to avoid that single thread impairment, and they went out with the callback stuff. But really fast, very quickly, a callback became very complicated to manage when you have several callbacks chained together, which is called callback hell. So they tried to find us another solution to make it easier to work with asynchronous procedures. Okay, so asynchronous is basically you're doing something, you ask for something to a third-party code, you keep doing your stuff, and when the third-party code gives you a response, then you manage the response, but you're not waiting for it. This is what is asynchronous. So at this point, the guy that made JavaScript created the promises. First of all, it was an external library, then it get into JavaScript. And as you know, promises work with a then statement and a catch statement for errors, and they also use callbacks. So it's an improvement, but it's not perfect. And so we basically get into more or less the same mess as with the callback hell. So they had to improve that. That's why we saw, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, the async await structure to work with promises in, let's say, a more synchronous way. Okay, so we're gonna see both of them. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna share my screen. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay. Okay, so first of all, let's see. Well, first we're going to define, because maybe this is something that many people don't know. You can define your own promise. Okay, so you can do this. I don't know if you already use that. Okay, so that is, I'm just creating a promise object. It doesn't do anything, and it's a bit useless. What I can do is pass to this to this constructor of the promise object the parameter it expects, which is a function with 2 arguments. Okay, so a function, this is a function, whoops, and with 2 arguments. Okay, this is a function with 2 arguments which are passed as the parameter of the promise constructor. These parameters are called usually by convention resolve and reject. Okay, but you can call whatever you want, but usually it's called resolve and reject. And then here we could do whatever we want. For example, to illustrate the asynchronicity of the story, do you all know the set timeout function? Okay, so set timeout is just to delay the execution of something, which is also using callbacks. Let's say we wait 2000 milliseconds, 2 seconds, and what we do is just okay. So no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm gonna do this. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now we can do the following. Okay, so I'm defining 2 other functions, one function that prints success and one function that prints a warning with the text error. And then what I can do is use my promise object. Yes, then, okay, and as you see, thanks to Visual Code IntelliSense, you can see that the then operator is expecting a function, a callback function, that will be passed an argument in case there is one. So in this case, let's say we put a function, and in this case, as you might already know, then the then operator in a promise is the operator which is called in case the promise resolves successfully, and in case there is an error in the promise, then the operator which is called is called catch. Okay, so same syntax. So that's what we have. So basically what we're doing here we are creating a promise, a promise object, and then maybe I get a little bit inside this code. Then we're just defining 2 functions, independent function, and then we use the promise object we created in the first place, and we use the promise, its promise nature, using the then and catch operators with their respective callback function. And if we do that, usually we should have success after 2 seconds printed here. Okay, so is it clear for everyone what is happening there, or does somebody has a doubt? Okay, okay, so same thing here. If I use reject, I will have the same result, but instead of success I will go there. So what is happening is, let's put it the breakpoints. Okay, so we create first. You know that. Well, let's restart. So execution steps. We start the first time. We create the promise. Then we go there. So this code is not executed yet because we have not called then. So it's not executed yet. Then we call then, and we pass the success function and the error function. Okay, so when the timeout has reached 2 seconds, then the reject parameter here, which is a function, is called, which is this function, and obviously I execute the code inside the function and I print this. Okay, so this is very, very basic. This way of writing the this syntax is correct, but it's a little bit useless, and it's maybe it's overcrowded with parentheses. Okay, so creating a function that returns another function doesn't make any sense. Just pass the function. Okay, so we could just pass success. Okay, so this is much easier to read. Okay, so it's the same. Then expect a function. This is a function, so we give him the function. If we, for example, here we change this to hello, and here success, we allow a parameter. This is what is happening. Then we go to resolve. When we call resolve here in the promise, what we are trying to do is that the function that has called the promise will pass the result in the then operator. And the then operator is using the success callback function. So we go there, and then in value, as you see, we have hello. So that's how promises work. That's it. That's all there is to know about promises. It's quite easy. So let's try to do something a little bit more complex. Okay, so there is a library in Node called Axios. There's plenty of library that can help you make HTTP requests to any website, web place. When you use the JavaScript inside browser, you don't need this kind of library, because the browser has the fetch function that does that, but Node doesn't have any fetch, so you have to use an external library. So I import this library, and I'm gonna show you the following. Let me see. Okay, okay. Oh, we're going to use, I don't know if you know it, there is a website called restcountries.eu, which is a REST API with a lot of information about countries, with prefixes, languages, currencies, capital, very static, basic information about all the countries in the world. Very, very useful API. So then we're not going to use the Axios library. We're going to issue a GET request to this URL, and we are going to get the results here in response. Okay, so we're going to look at that. Okay. Then I just have the results. Okay, let me stop here, because I'm not sure, because you're not saying anything. I'm not sure we all control that. Okay, so do you see that the first step, this instruction is executed before the second one, even if it's lower in the code? Okay, because this is inside the then of the promise. It means it's asynchronous. So the execution flow will go this line, this line, second line, then it will go to the fourth line, execute that, then it will go to the next available line, which is line 11, and then when the call to the URL returns, then it will execute the code inside that. That's why the first step is always before the second step. Okay? So now I have the data. Okay, so I have a lot of data here. As you can see, I just show you one. It returns an array of countries objects. Each country has a lot of properties, and we're gonna focus on the flag one, for example. I don't remember my example. Okay, so yeah, I here what I'm doing here. Well, actually, I don't need. Okay, let's stop here. So if I do that, I could do okay, so I get the URL of this country's flag. But imagine I want to download this country's flag. I have two possibilities. I could, to download the country's flag, first I need to get the country's data, the URL of the flag. So I need to do something inside here, because if I do it outside, I don't have this data. The flag is only available on this variable. Okay? So I have to do it here. So what I could do is inside this callback here, issue another call to Axios get, etc., etc., and repeat the same. Instead of get region, I could do this. And I don't remember the shape of the response. I think it's just response. Let's see that. It's data again. Okay. Okay, so I issue the first call.
I don't understand what's happening on line 6. That data.flag argument that you're giving to Axios.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Okay, so
because I thought it's a URL.
Okay, let's execute again. So the first Axios call, we get the this URL is requesting all the countries of the EU bloc. Okay, so if I execute that, when it gets back from the website, in data I have 33 countries in an array. Okay, and here I'm just getting the first one. I just want to work with the first countries of the return values. Okay, so data is the islands. It's the data of this country. Okay, with all these attributes. And one of the attributes is the flag. And the flag is defined as another URL where you can download.
Okay, there you go.
You can download, in this case, it's an SVG, but it could be a picture or it could be anything else. But it's another call to the web.
Yeah.
So
Got
it
it.
also has to be asynchronous. So once I have this flag URL, then I can call it again. Okay, I can call the Axios get with this URL, and then I will get the response. Again, asynchronous. So then data is the SVG representation of the flag, which I've been fetching to the web and getting back. So that's one way to do it. But the problem here is that we get back to the callback hell. We are nesting promises inside promises inside promises. And this is very, very difficult to read if you have 4 levels, for example, because we also have to use the catch method, etc., etc. So another way to do it, which is preferred, is taking advantage of the capacity of promises to be chained together. Okay, it means that the then operator itself returns another promise. Okay, so what you can do is, once we are here on line 5, we have data which represent the country, and what we want to return is the URL of the flag. So we can do that. We can return the flag URL. Okay, and here we can chain another then, which will get the value that we are returning here. Okay, and we can use it here. I'm doing exactly the same thing as before, but instead of nesting, I'm just chaining. So I don't have a hierarchy of promises. They are all of the same level. It's a little bit more similar to synchronous code. It means that I'm going to execute that, and then I'm going to get the response here. And when I have finished my work in this block of code, then I will go there, and then I will chain another then. So it's just step by step. It's not nested inside one another, which is much more difficult to read. Okay, so I can do that. And then let's say, for example, here, response data. Okay, so I'm going to get exactly the same thing. First call to the website is return, so I have my country data. I'm returning then the flag URL. Yep. Here in my parameter I have this flag, and then I can make another call, and then I get the response data. So okay, it does exactly the same as before, but it usually much better to use it like that, because in this case you can have just one catch. In case you were nesting the promises, you will have to specify the then catch for each promise. So you would have a lot of then, a lot of catch, and it's a little bit of a mess to follow. When you're chaining promises, you just need one catch. That's it. It will get every then. If there is another error in any then, it will be catch here. Okay? But in any case, as I was saying before, this is okay. It's a big improvement upon callbacks, but it's still a little bit confusing to read. It's not, the human brain is not really used to work with asynchronous stuff and inputs coming from different time and places. So it's that's why they invented the asynchronous and the wait async syntax. So I will go copy, which is quicker, my example. Okay. So let's try to do the same thing, but with async await. The problem with async await is at least you need one function we need one promise to call then and catch, but everything inside it could be using async await. So we define an asynchronous function called as you want, and I'm doing exactly the same as before, but instead of doing axio get and then and catch, I'm using await. Okay, so this line, let's go step by step. Okay, so I'm gonna comment this out. Okay. Oops. Okay, and I'm going to stop here and here. So now if I run that, I go into my test.sync waits 2 function. I run this, and it's going to wait a little bit. It's going to get and fetch the info and return it directly here in the response variable. Okay, so this is exactly the same as before with the then. Instead of doing everything inside a code block, we use a normal synchronous syntax. And thanks to the await keyword, this call will await until it's resolved, and then the result will be assigned to the response variable. And as before, we have the island, blah blah blah. Okay. But do you know what destructuring is in JavaScript? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we can, as you see, I'm always, I mean, the object returned from this API is always a response with a lot of information and a data attribute which contain the actual data that has relevant information. So I'm just interested in the data. So I can destructurize this response object and just saving the data part of it. So if I do that, I will have the same result. Okay. In data, now I have my countries. Okay, and I don't have the rest of the response. I just discarded it. Okay, so to have this to make the same example as before, we could do that. What I'm doing wrong? I'm doing something wrong. So I have I have my data. Where's my data? Oh, I have to stop here.
Probably you're trying to get flag from an array.
Oh, yeah, I'm stupid. I just want the first one. Okay, so now I have my flag, and this should be data. So this is the correct code. Okay, so with just 2 lines, I can do the same as before with, I don't know, 15 lines that we had before with the then and the catch and repeating the call, etc., etc. So obviously async await is the way to go. It's much easier to work with than promises with then and catch. But it has some inconvenience. Let's say for until now, what I've done is I've retrieved the 33 countries from the EU block, and I've just used the first one to get its flag. But maybe I'm interested in getting all the flags of the 33 countries. So I need some kind of loop to iterate on the 33 countries and issue a request to the API to get the flag for each one, and maybe store it in a variable, or maybe store it in the files in the disk or whatever, no? So what I can do, for example, my point here is I want to get all the flags as they are SVG text. I want to store them in an array variable. So what I can do is transform my data, which is the array containing all the information about the country. I want to transform that information into just an array of strings, and each string will represent the SVG of the flag. Okay, you follow me until now? So that's why I use map. So I map the data. Okay, so inside the callback of the map function, each value will be the country. This country will have an attribute called flag, which will hold the URL of the flag. So I can issue an await call to get the flag and then return the flag that will be stored inside the array of flag. Okay? So far so good? Okay, so let's run it. Okay, so then I have all the data, and then I map and I issue all the array. And gosh, what happened? What I'm getting here is an array of 33 promises. I'm not getting the results. Okay, so this is one of the flaws of async await. It's not about design. They haven't been able to solve that. You can't use async await inside callback loops, like with for each, reduce, map, etc. You can't do that. There's no way to do it. It doesn't work. So it's basically it doesn't wait for the call to return. It just issue all the requests and save the result. That's it. It doesn't await. It's not working. Okay, so how can we do that? What's the way to retrieve all the flags for the 33 countries? What do you think? What is the good approach? There is one bad approach that works and one good approach. So two approaches works. The one is the first one, or let's say one is not a good implementation. The second one is better implementation. What are your thoughts?
Recursive function, maybe?
Sorry?
Create a recursive function.
It won't work. It's the same. And where would you call the recursive function? You call it once, and then you pass it a parameter, and then it calls itself, and then you have to make a lot of tests to see if there is any more value to retrieve, and then get back. Could work.
Yeah, with a counter, probably.
Yeah. A little bit complicated. Okay, third option I haven't thought about. Maybe it could work. Well, actually, there is a flaw in your code because since it's a recursive function, it means that you are creating a hierarchy of calls. Okay, so the first function will call itself. That will be the second call to the function, then the third call, etc., etc. Okay? You have a maximum call in JavaScript, like in any language, which is called the stack, the call stack. And maybe sometime you already have some error called Stack Overflow. A Stack Overflow is when you go too deep in the hierarchy of calls. So imagine you have 1 million flags to retrieve, then you will have a Stack Overflow. At some point, you have a limitation. So it won't work theoretically in all the cases. Probably in most cases it would work, but maybe in some cases it won't because you will reach a Stack Overflow. Okay, so
You said we can't use a for loop, and maybe with a counter, and then retrieve one flag at a time, and then push it to an array.
Correct. This is the first solution that works, but it's not the best implementation. So what I've said is
Not efficient.
async await doesn't work in loops, in callback loops. Okay, so in loops done inside map, reduce, for each, etc. But it does work in a normal for loop. Okay, so if I do this, oops. Okay. And oh, okay. So this would work. This should work. We're gonna see if it works, but maybe there is some, yeah, there's a syntax error here because it's okay. So what this will do, it will iterate over all the data, all the countries inside the data variable, which is an array that we retrieve here, and for each one of them it's gonna issue a get a get request to the website, retrieve the value, store it in this variable, and then push this variable inside the global array. Okay, so why am I saying it's not a good implementation, even if it works? What is the inconvenience, the flow of this way to do it?
If you have a large number of flags, you have to wait for it to do all these calls one after the other.
Exactly.
When you're hoping to complete.
You're basically making all the calls synchronously, so you have to wait for one call to finish to ask for the other, for ask to the second flag and then the third flag. So if you have 1,000 flags and it takes 1 second, then you have to wait 1,000 seconds. Okay, so it works, but it's not very efficient. Okay, so let's see, at least let's see if it works. Okay, so then we get that data, and I'm missing something. Oh, okay. Okay, so first loop, I'm requesting the flag, I'm getting the flag here, I'm pushing it, well, sorry. Here. And now what is happening now? Okay. Okay, so I've made a mistake, I don't know what it is.
You're pushing flag,
yeah,
when
pushing
the
flag
structured data
and
to
it
push
doesn't
data.
exist.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Okay, let's put it like before. I don't know. Not losing time debugging. So that should work. No? Okay. So now I have flag and I'm pushing the flag inside here. So next second one, third one, blah 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 blah. And now I'm finished. Okay, so it took us some time. Okay, so this is okay, but it's not the good way to do it. The good way to do it, the correct way to do it, is this. Okay, so first of all, we do almost the same. What we do actually is we iterate over the data, the countries, and we issue a request for this flag, for each flag. We don't wait for the result. We just store the promise because Axios get is issuing a promise, is returning a promise. Sorry. So what we will have here is an array of promises of all the calls I've made to the API that will return all the strings afterwards. And what I can do after that is this. Okay. Does that speak to you? Okay, so what I'm doing is my iteration is immediate. Okay, I'm just iterating through the data to get the URL and issue all the requests to the website. So they are all going to be fired at the same time. And I store all the return values, which are promises, inside an array here. And then I call promise all with this, and I pass this array. And promise all, what does promise all does is wait for all the promises in the array to resolve to give you the results. So they are all executed simultaneously at the same time. Okay, so if the average time to get the country value, the flag value, is 1 second, then this call will be 1 second for 1 million flag, because they are all issued at the same time, and in average they will all get back some value after 1 second. Okay, so as you can see, this is instantaneous. It just goes straight there, and this is an array of 33 promises, and then that's it. I got all the promises in one shot, all resolved, and now I have everything. Okay, I have all the results here. Is it clear? I'm seeing like dark faces, like I'm not sure I get it. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Do you think to digest it a little bit more, or is it something you already knew?
No, it makes sense.
Okay, so I strongly encourage you to do that. Always, it's easier. And obviously you could do it. I mean, you don't have to assign everything to variable. You can perfectly do that. This is correct. Okay, I'm just passing the map operator inside the function, the promise all function. My personal preference is not to do that, because even if, first of all, you don't gain any performance in your code, but you're losing some readability. It's maybe a little bit harder to read and to follow the code if you have many lines. Usually it's easier to have this line and then this line. Doesn't make any difference in execution time, but to read it, it's easier. I think that's my opinion. Okay. And I think that's it. I don't have any further stories about promises. I don't know if you have any doubts, or maybe you've faced in the past difficulties that maybe it can help with. I don't know.
So if you have, say you have an API which you need to pull some data from, and then you're using values from that API to do another call,
Yeah.
you would write that as a way where you store as a constant the value, and then you use that on your next call.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what would here. That's my first call.
Yep.
And that will be okay. So here in data we have an array of all the countries, and
Yep.
okay, so and the code step, the flow of the code will be, it will execute this line first, and it will not go to the second line until this promise here is resolved, thanks to the async await structure. Okay, so once this promise is resolved, then the value returned will be assigned to data and destructured. And then you go to the second line, and the second line, it will do exactly the same. It will get a call, return a promise, wait for this promise to resolve, and then assign the value to flag. Okay, and then you can go. So it's basically like a normal synchronous code. It's like normal code. There's no more asynchronicity inside. Okay, but there is something else. When you use, well, forget about that. If you want to do clean code and robust code, when you use promises, imagine that my promise, you will. Okay. Oh, I have it here. Sorry, I have this one here. Okay, so this is returning a promise, and I'm using then to handle the result of the promise in case it's successful, and I'm also using catch to handle any kind of error, okay, arising inside the promise. You always should use catch because basically it's the same with callback. You are delegating the execution of your code to someone else, okay, to some other piece of code. So you don't actually know here what is going to happen. So you have to control the flow of error. Okay, so you always have to use catch. Usually JavaScript won't complain if you don't use catch. But if there's an issue, depending how the issue is raised inside the promise, you could just break the code, or you can just not be aware that there was a mistake, and the code will go on without the proper value. Okay, so always control your code with catch. The problem is that when you use async await, there's no catch. So you have to nest your code inside a try catch block, as any piece of code you should write. Always use a try catch. Okay, always control the flow of your code to make sure that you can handle any kind of not expected values of errors. Okay, so maybe your network connection could be off, maybe the API have changed and the result, or you're calling an endpoint that doesn't exist, or whatever. All these kind of stuff can change in the future, so you don't know. So if you don't use catch, either with a try catch block with async await or with the catch function, you will get into trouble. Okay. More? Okay. So can we get back to the app? Okay. All right. So let me get back to that. Let me see. We're gonna. Okay. I don't know if it's gonna work. Present a window and I think it's this. Where is the zoom? Okay. Okay, is it? Well, I think you can see that, no? Is it clear enough? Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. So getting back to the app, or checking app. So my view of it, and we can obviously discuss it. I try to, well, first explaining what I'm trying to do. So this task, what is the objective? The objective is very similar to a sort of a role play. Okay, so when you're thinking about creating an app and you're thinking about how to structure things, the best way to do that is to try to put yourself in the shoes of a user and try to imagine the steps this user is going to follow. So what it will be presented with the first time, and what kind of information it will see and what kind of action it can take. Okay, so try to make it realistic. So a very common mistake is, again, jump into the code and saying, okay, so I need a module to do authentication, and then I need a module to do login, and that's true, but it's not the time. So first you have to design with just pen and paper or whatever system you want, what will be the flow. It doesn't have to be very rigorous, but you have to have a clear idea and put it by writing. This is very important because the mind register writing, and it keeps it very present. What will happen in the screen? So my view is, first time a user get to the app, first we have to check if we know or if we don't know, if the app knows or doesn't know the user, and depending on on each case, we're going to show him or her a different screen. Obviously, if it's an unknown user, a new user, probably we're going to route him to register or sign up page. If we already know him, we can log him or route him to a login page, or even use the cookies and just skip this step and auto login and present him with the home page. Okay, so that's why I call that the slash. It's the root of the app. Maybe it's not the home page. I don't know if you understand the difference. I consider the home page the first page that the user can interact with. So this slash is the root, and maybe the user is not interacting with that. It's interacting with one of the two. Okay. So what will happen is, if it's a known user, it will be routed to a login page. Probably login page will check if the user is already logged in, because maybe it has logged in with in the past and the cookie is still valid. So it will just go one step after that and go to the home page. Or maybe the cookie is not valid, or it's another device and you have to actually log in. Okay, very classic approach. And the other one is also classic. If the user is not known, because there's no cookies, there's nothing, you go to a register page. Or we can also have another strategy, which is we can give the user the opportunity to have a look at the app, but it won't be able to use any of the functionalities, because for that we need the user to be logged in. So maybe he could check some venues or check some basic information. Okay, I think for the app or for this exercise we will skip that. Probably in terms of user experience, it's the best approach to show the user a preview or a reduced functionality of the app, but it's going to get too complex to do it online, so we're going to not do that. So we're going to just route him to a registering page, and then after register, probably a good idea is to show him a user profile page where the user can enrich its information. Okay, because on the register it's just a login password, you don't have anything else. So maybe you need we would like to get some more information about the people logging in. It's not necessary for the app, but it's always a good thing to have more info about your customers. Okay, and obviously once we have both paths completed, then we go back to the home page, and the home page will be where all the action take place. Okay, so the home page is second diagram, very easy in my opinion. In the home page, we don't care if the user is the owner of some venues or it may be just a user, a client of some venues. It doesn't matter. We don't have any to check anything. In the home page, we will show in some way the available venues where you can use the app. You will give the ability to the user to search for venues, give the user the ability to edit his profile, we also have the ability to add a venue, because maybe this person want to sign up for a new venue. So there is in my opinion, this is the place where this can be done, or this can be requested. Obviously, in my opinion also, we should have a checking button on every screen. So in this case, just press that and it shows the QR code. It's like a shortcut, a very quick access to be able to identify itself, the user, anywhere. And also show favorite button, because I guess we could, once you search, or once you find some of the interesting venue for you, you could add to a favorite folder or whatever, a category, and then obviously you need to show it. Okay, so this is what I'm imagining in the homepage. User profile. I'm not inventing anything. It's already invented. So first name, last name, email, phone number, blah blah blah. We can take advantage of social media in the registering process. If the user is registering with Google or Facebook or whatever, we already get all this information, so we can store it. I think we have to go to next page here. Okay. So here the user will be able to inform us of his age, gender, set a picture if we don't have it already through the social media, and also set his or her preferences about how he'd like to be reached out to with email, SMS, or push notification through the app. Maybe we can do a multi-language application, not just English or Spanish or Greek or whatever. So it could change the language of the application, in any other preference that is depending just on the user. So how he wants to be talked to and what he can see on the app. So this would be the user profile. And then the second thing that we have is the ability to search a venue. So you can search a venue by name, by zip code, on a map, or by geolocation. If you are on the smartphone, you can get the GPS coordinate and then try to do a search within a radius to show you close by places. And then we have to show a map, or we have to show here I put a map. It will be obviously very, very good to show a map, but we could just show a list with the venue responding to this kind of search. Okay, and until now it's nothing very, very complicated. Then once we have all the venue that we have searched for, then we can select one. Okay, so once you select a venue, then the app should detect if you're the owner of this venue or not. And if you're the owner, give you the ability to edit the parameters of this venue. If you're not the owner, then this option won't appear. You would just be able to view the details of this venue, add it to a favorite, or obviously checking. Again, same button as before, you checking. Also, I put here, we talked about it in the first session, and we put it in Trello. If we want to know statistics about the venue, how many people are actually inside it, what is the average waiting time, stuff like that. You can see that here. Obviously, if you're the owner, maybe you're interested in more private statistic that you could show also in the same screen. Depending of your role inside the venue, you will be shown very brief statistics, or maybe more wide range of information. Okay, so that could be something. And the last one is just editing the venue here. The venue, for me, this is the minimum things that, or minimum information that a venue should have. A name, maybe geolocation will be a good thing to have, but not necessary. Maximum capacity, this is a critical data. Maximum time, I don't know how to say that in English, or correctly in English. The maximum time of presence inside the venue, or how would you say it?
I think stay is fine.
Stay fine. Okay. So
Yeah.
inside the venue, maybe opening hours. Set a threshold. The threshold, as we said in Trello, will be the number of people or the time from which you can trigger alerts to people that want to be alerted. Okay, so if you want to go to a swimming pool, for example, and it's already at full capacity, maybe you can have. Oh, sorry, it's the other way around. The threshold will mark, for example, if we want to show some colors on the display for the venues that are very close to their maximum capacity. Maybe we're gonna show them in orange, and venues that are full, show them in red, and the other one, or the free one, in green. So for that, we need to define a threshold on at which level we're gonna switch from one color to the other. Okay. Obviously, we have to set an owner. The owner would have all the permissioning for this venue, but we also set some permission for other users to act as receptionists. So they wouldn't have the capacity to change any of this function, but they could be the person at the front door to check for the users, the clients, to get them to check them inside the place. Okay, so different roles again. And of course, an option to delete the venue. And that's it. I think we don't need anything else. I don't know what are your thoughts about it. I don't know if you have at least at this level, we can go in each option. We can go one step below, one step inside, go deeper, double click on it, and maybe expand with more details. But I'm not seeing anything more. I don't know what you think. I don't know. Maybe Harry, you have a different opinion because you've been working with it more than I did. No thoughts?
I saw Harry unmute and then mute again. I'm not sure if he was trying to say something.
I don't know. It appears muted to me.
I think it all makes sense. It's a clear way to articulate all the parts.
Okay, it auto mutes for some reason. Okay, so my goal is not to show you how the app should be. Okay, so this is my thoughts, but the objective is to show you what kind of information we have to write down at this step. Okay, on this stage of application construction flow. Okay, what I like to do is write this down, and it will guide you with the definition of the structure of your code of your application. Okay, so this is probably if you've, I don't know, maybe Thomas, you, since you're working on UX, you know a little bit of design thinking. So this is a very simplified version of user journey. So the best thing would be to do the full user journey with the emotions and all the stuff on the steps. So that is great. But design thinking is really great, but you have to have a lot of time. You have to have, very long sessions, and it's very rich. But many times you don't have this time, or you don't have the opportunity to sit down with other people and do all this work. So I'm considering you're by yourself, you're on your own. Okay, you want to do that as a hobby or a side project, and you don't have the opportunity to share all this knowledge and brainstorming with other people. So you should at least go through this step of very brief and very reduced version of the user journey, which is all the interaction that the user can have with the app. Try to materialize it. Try to think how it will be in reality. Don't think about how the code will be. Just think with your mobile phone, what could we do? And when I'm here, now what can I do? What I would like to see on the screen to appear for me to proceed or to go on. So this is what I'm trying to show here. And for this app, maybe there will be other way to do it. This is my view, but my point is, don't skip this step, because it will guide you. As you see, if you do that, you already see the different parts of the application: the user profile, the venue, the home screen with all the options, etc., etc. Obviously, it's a very simple app, so we don't have a lot of screens, okay? But it's starting to be a little bit more complete, and then you can see there's one or two level down that we can see, so we could start to imagine how the code will look like afterwards. Okay. And I don't know if we can. I haven't had anything else to show today. I don't know if you want to discuss anything. We have 15 minutes left. Next step will be to then start the big thing and try to initiate the project and start to code and stuff like that. So I don't know if you have anything else to comment right now.
So the next step after this, you would start to think about what is the general structure of how you
Oh,
would
we can talk about that. That's a good idea.
organize.
Okay, so that's a good idea. And actually, I'm gonna get back to the presentation. You're completely right. I forgot that. Yeah, here, window, this one. Okay. So as I said in the first session, after that yes, after this part, you should think about the overall architecture of the app. Okay, so this step should be when you decide, because you already have thought with all this thinking you've done with this. Obviously, you usually, because the mind of the human brain is like that, you don't just stop here, search by name. You think about how you're going to search by name and how it's going to work, etc., etc. So probably here I already did it. It's a mistake, but I shouldn't have done it. But this is Google Maps, for example. So maybe we're going to have to use Google Maps at some point. Also, at the beginning, I said we should use some social network to get the information of the user profile. So you're already seeing stuff that should be or could be used inside the project. So maybe next step after that is try to list all the necessities that you will require. For example, probably we will need some map tool. Okay, there are 2 or 3 websites to call them a certain way that provides you with maps and establishments or venues, or Google Maps or Mapbox, or there's 2 or 3. Okay, so we will probably need one of those. We will probably need a way to use social network to do the login. So we could do for example, if you know it, Auth0, which is a very, very powerful API or website that provides a lot of services to do authentication. We could use obviously Firebase that already does it out of the box. We also, well, obviously this has to be a mobile app. It has to work on mobile phone. Okay, so probably we will have to think about, should we do it with native code or sure, Michael.
PWA.
Yeah. Should we do it in a native code, or can we do it with something like Flutter, for example, which is great because you just have one code base and then you can deploy in Android and iOS and web, etc. Or could we do it in JavaScript normal, basic way or simple way, and then do sorry, a progressive web app with it? So this is the point when you can decide that. And you have to take into account several things. One of them is who is going to develop that. So you have to put inside the equation the capacity of the people developing. So if it's yourself, you don't know C++ or you don't know Java, then you're fucked with native development. You cannot do it because you don't know how to do it. So you have to take into consideration the limitations. Okay, so this is where the step where you write down all the necessities and requirements and also limitations. And then with that, you say, okay, I can choose, we can explore. Okay, I prefer Mapbox or I prefer Google Maps. And you look at the prices because most of the services are expensive. Some of them are free tier. So this is the place or the time where you decide what libraries or not library, what services you're going to use. Okay, and maybe what is the structure of the code. So for example, to keep it simple, what I'm proposing is to keep Firebase as a database because it gives us the hosting, the database, the real-time, the signing and sign-up facilities, which are extremely powerful. So we already all know it a little bit. Okay, so but as a general concept, this is the time when you have to decide all of this. Okay, so you have to think maybe with all this in mind. What is the perfect database? What is the correct database? Is Firebase the correct one, or maybe you could use something else? For example, something that I haven't mentioned here, but is really, really interesting is, okay, we're going to use Firebase or Firestore. And probably someone using the app searching for a venue would like to search it by name, no? It's not something very ridiculous, no? Probably it's a place close to his home, or he knows the name and he wants to search it by name. You can't do that in Firestore. There's no way to search by name. Or you can filter by an exact value, but you cannot say, give me all the documents that start with something or that contains the word something. You can't do that. There's no way to do it. So probably if you want to search by name, you will need something like Algolia to help you searching by name, or some kind of elastic search. You can build your own Algolia, small version of it in a Google Cloud or whatever. So this is something you have to think about. Okay, so go step by step and say, okay, close to me, meaning I have to be able to get the GPS coordination, and then be able to do a search on geolocation. Well, 1 year ago, 2 months ago, Firestore couldn't do that. Now it can, thanks to Jeff. So you can do, but for example, Firestore cannot do geolocation search, but Firebase, the real-time database, can do it. So you could use Firestore as your main database and also store the venues inside Firebase, real-time database, to enable the geolocation search. So this is the place, this is the moment in your steps to think about all those tools that you're gonna need, and see if it's feasible. Maybe it's too complex, maybe it's or too expensive. So in terms of managing the project, this is why it's important to go step by step, because at this time maybe you reach the conclusion that it was a good idea, but there's no way I can build that on my own. I'm not able to, or maybe it's going to be too expensive because I have to use this and this and this, and there is a fee for using it. Okay, so that's why it's important to go through this step, and also you can get an idea of how long it's going to take. Okay, so what we're going to do, well, the next step, once you've done that, when you've listed all the requirements, to call them that way, you have to decide of an MVP. Okay, an MVP is minimum viable product. Okay, and again, this is crucial because usually when you've reached this point, you've managed to get everything under control and you think you can do it, and then you want to do it, and then you start coding and you start structuring, and then you have a lot of ideas that comes from say it's I don't know the English word. So you start coding, you start doing thing, and the way you're doing thing, it brings some ideas to you, so we want to do more thing, and then it explodes. Okay.
Yeah.
And probably all those ideas are good ideas. And so what you have to do before that is to define exactly what you want to achieve as a minimum viable product. So what would be the first step of your finished code? It doesn't have to be the app. Actually, it can't be the app. It has to be something that resemble a lot the finished application with bare minimum functions. Something that probably nobody would use because it lacks a lot of stuff. But let's say it will be the minimum functioning application that you could do. Without those features, there's absolutely no point to go on. Okay, but so you have to decide that. You have to define what of all these features that we've listed on the screen you're going to implement on the first stage, and write them down and say, okay, this is my MVP. It will have a register screen, a login screen, maybe user preference, search venues, no map, just a list, no scanning, no UI, whatever you decided, and then you can code it. And once you've done that and it's finished, it's okay, then you define second step and then third step. So go step by step. If you don't do that, you're going to be overwhelmed with all the ideas that will raise into your mind. Oh, I can do that, and this and this. Oh, and if I do this, I need to take care of this, and it's never ending. So start small, write your ideas down. That's why I personally use Trello, because for each feature I create a card and then I can add stuff. I'm not developing it. I'm just doing the bare stuff at the beginning. But all the ideas, I write them down because I'm very forgetful. So after that, when I go to the second stage or the second iteration of the product, I can go back to my Trello and say, oh, so now I go to my backlog and say, I can do this and this and this and this. And this is my phase 2. Okay, and that's the way usually to get to the finish line. If you don't go like this, probably it will be a never-ending project. There will always something coming up, and you will never finish anything. You will never deliver anything. No shipping. Okay? Believe me, I've been through it many times.
Yeah.
Because you get very enthusiastic. You're really, you like the idea. You go, and it explodes. There's no way.
Yeah, I think for myself, what I found is you have to figure out what is the thinnest piece of this application that if I can't do that, the whole app wouldn't make sense. Like, what are the pieces that I have to have that exist? Like in this app, I think um, most likely the way somebody finds a venue and is able to pick that venue is the most important. We know login and register, all of those are basic functionalities, but we need to be able to do this piece for this app to make sense. Probably adding venues and a couple of other things, but then I usually try to get some proof of concept of can I make that part work and get a flow of something like that working, and then I add the other parts to it. But the idea you said about when you get ideas to write them down, when I started doing that, it helped me a lot because I would go in these rabbit holes of you get idea, then you
That's
try
the
to do
term.
that idea, and you never finish any feature because you're always trying to do all these other features. So what I started doing is I was using, I think, GitHub issues, and I just have issues. And I say, I have to finish this issue. I like that idea, but I need to finish this issue and I need to work before I go to the next one.
Yeah. The rabbit hole metaphor is perfect. You go there and then you never get out. There's always something else. You always have a new idea, or you realize that what you're doing, there's a flow in it. There's some point where the user could go and then it's broken or it doesn't work, or maybe the user changes his email, for example. You can register by email, perfect. And what if the user changes his email? Oh shit! So he won't be able to access his data. So we have to do a process to switch from one email to another email. And okay, but so that's what you have. You're right. That can happen, and we have to take into account that it could happen. Write it down. We do it in 2022. So that's the way. That's the way to proceed. You can't do everything the first time. It won't work. Enrico, what is your experience?
I think that, in the past, I've had issues with the microservices, when you identify all the microservices that you need for your app, because maybe you don't know all of them. And then you do a little bit of research. You think you pick the right one. Like, let's say you need to create private disposable links, and then you go with the service and you find out that you can only generate public links. And despite they have maybe a token key in it, which makes it pretty much impossible to guess, there's the public, and so you don't want to risk it. Or maybe you just go with something else from geolocation because you chose another service and you know that service works well with the other, but then you can't do something. And so you have to work your way back and rethink everything. And I think that's challenging too. Unless you have worked with so many services that you know enough about them to say, okay, I'm going to pick this one.
One of the
So
things
how would you solve that, Patrick?
Sorry?
How would you solve that issue?
Well,
would you
can't.
just have listing?
You will get into dead ends anyway. You solve it by experience, by having step on the same stone many times. There's no way. Or I don't know. Maybe if you're very thorough, you say, okay, for this application, I will use, I don't know, Firestore, and then you go to the documentation and you read and you learn everything from Firestore, and then everything from Agolia and everything. So no one does that because you.
Yeah, I actually just do like proof of concepts. Like if there's something, so for example, this geo piece, I would say, what do I need to be able to do at a minimum with that particular, integration? And then I would just have like some empty repo and do a really small thing that's not the app, but like just trying to see, can I, if I, sign up for the free version of this service and I make something happen.
Yeah.
And if I can go through a flow that looks a little bit like what I would need in my application, then I know, okay, that one I'm okay. So I don't need to read all the documentation. I just need to read the parts that will support what I need to do.
Yeah,
so I usually do that for the things that I have no familiarity with, that it's like a new integration that I'm trying to use. and then I can tell. But you can still hit the roadblocks even after you do that.
Yeah.
It's just I'm trying to de-risk it a little bit, especially if I'm trying to choose between three options or something like that. I'll try to see how is it working with this particular API or using this particular integration.
Correct. That's why the initial listing here is important, because it allows you to find out what kind of technology you need behind it. For example, think about it when you search by name, as I said. If you want to search by name, you don't want to search with an exact name. You need to search with approximate name, something that resembles, looks like what you're looking for. So you need something to do that, and you have to check if your database is allowed to do that, is able to do that. So if it's not, you have to find out. You have to find an alternative, and then you have to do some research. Same as Thomas said, for close to me means first you have to be able to know where you are, and second, to make a research or to make a search based on the geolocation. So you have to search, how can I do that? So I have to research that. So basically all this step helps you to determine, to find out what are the critical points in your application that you have to solve. Like we said, social network login. Is it something critical in the app? My opinion, it's not. It's easier for us, but you can perfectly work without it. You could perfectly do a normal sign-in with email and password, and then request the user to give some information. It will still work. It's easier with social network, but it's not necessary. But searching by name, I think it's critical. It's very difficult not to search by name. Or searching, for example, rabbit hole, searching by zip code. How can you do that? It's at least I know France and Spain, there are 5 or 6 digits. Very easy. For example, Paris is 75000, and then the different district in Paris, they're 75001, 002, etc. So super easy to find. Madrid, 28000, etc. Then you go to UK. Fuck. It's not numbers. They also have strings in it, and I cannot. So you have to go a little bit deeper. So yeah, maybe zip code is going to be a little more complex. So yeah, you have to do your research there. So avoiding roadblocks, I think it comes with experience, because at the end of the day, the problems are always the same. It's very rare you face, after 5 years, you face new stuff. It's always the same. You always have the same issues, and hopefully you already have solved them.
Yeah.
Okay, so no homework for New Year's Eve. I think you will be probably busy with some other stuff, more interesting stuff. Let's see what next week. I don't have the calendar here. Next week is it will be the 6th, no? Yeah. Okay. Everybody is okay with the 6th for next week? Okay.
Yeah.
So next week, I've watched a lot of React videos to see if what we're going to do is going to be very different in Angular and React, and at least at the beginning, in terms of structuring the code and thinking on how we can encapsulate stuff. I think it will be very, very similar. The logic of it. Obviously, the syntax is not, but the logic it's the same. Then afterwards, once we start coding, obviously it's different, but it's not that different, huh? Because React and Angular are both based on web components. So you just do components with templates and code, and then they interact. So the syntax is quite different, but it can be translated very easily.
How about Vue?
Sorry?
How about Vue?
Vue. I don't know Vue. I guess it's very very similar to React. I don't know Vue. I have not uh, dedicated time to.
I think the three of them conceptually, like you were saying, it's using components to compose the
Yeah,
full application. I think they just differ in the way that you pass data through. And I think Angular is much more structured and gives you a lot of more opinions around everything up to routing and so on. And I think Vue is more structured than React, but less
than
than
Angular.
Angular.
Yeah,
So React is the one where you have to figure out all of your different libraries you're going to use for all the different types of things you're doing. And Angular gives you a lot of it out of the box. So I think that's the big
yeah.
difference.
That's why it's.
But it's all JavaScript at the end of the day.
Well, yeah.
Right?
I think yeah. Obviously yes, but I think there's a upper levels and higher levels
Yeah,
that make quite a lot of difference.
yeah,
My personal opinion about the three, let's say, framework slash libraries is just figure out what kind of developer you want to be, because there's a strong orientation for Angular to be enterprise size and React slash Vue more startup or more small size and not that complex application. Okay, so depending on what is your target, if you want to be part of a big company and develop huge app, maybe what I'm doing is internal apps for the company, probably go more Angular. If you want to do more, fancy things, not that complex, probably with a startup and then another one and much light and quick, probably the Vue React approach. It's not better or worse. It's just that the people hiring you usually look for that. So it's not that one is better than the other. I have my opinion, but this is just an opinion. But what is true, what is a fact, is if you are applying in a big company or, for example, the big consulting, which works with, I don't know, banks or pharmaceutical or stuff like a big company like that, probably they will look for Angular oriented people because it's traditionally what's have been used inside the big companies. If you're starting from scratch with a friend, a startup, the React thing is probably the learning curve is quicker, so you can achieve stuff quicker than with Angular. It's maybe less strict, less rigid, so you can do. But the problem is with React and Vue inside a company is that first of all you have to agree with all the developers on the structure of the code and what other library you're going to use to fill the gap that exists with those libraries, which which is a problem that doesn't exist with Angular because it's a full framework. So everything is covered. You don't need anything else. So you don't have to, and it's opinionated as you said. So you don't have to sit down with all the developers and say, what library are we going to use for routing? It's already there. And people say, well, I have more experience with this and this one is better, and people get emotional about their choices, and it's really hard. So if you're working with 20 or 30 developers, Angular is the best choice because no one
yeah. I
no
also
one
think
has a say.
in enterprise, also a lot of enterprises will have legacy applications that are in Angular already because React came around
Yeah, it's late. It
a
comes
little bit
later.
later, and so that's what happens in my company. There's a lot of Angular around anyway, so React is newer, and either people are transitioning some Angular apps to React, so you would need to understand the Angular to do that anyway, or they're maintaining Angular apps.
Yeah.
So Angular is like very prevalent. I work in a large bank, so like Angular is like all over the place.
Okay. That's something I've never understood. Why people are transitioning from Angular to React with already existing apps. It's just hype. It's just a way to spend money. Silly. When you're talking about Angular 2 plus, no Angular JS. the old Angular.
I think it was the Angular JS ones
Okay,
that they're
so
trying to.
AngularJS,
Yeah.
there's a lot of reason to want to do
Yeah.
an upgrade of it, and once you upgrade it,
Yeah.
you can decide for React or anything else. I was talking about
Yeah.
Angular 2 plus. Now we are Angular 10. Because
Yeah, we also have a UI toolkit, which is kind of a design language thing that gives you components out of the box for UI, and the design UX team did that in React. So it's easier to use that
sure, obviously,
toolbox with React than it is. I mean, they have some Angular and web component interactivity, but it's much easier to do it in React. So
if
people who have very older legacy apps, it's easier to transition to React
of
and
course,
do it with
yeah. If the
with the
design
toolkit.
people, they work their way, and then the coding or the programmers work the other way, then yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. Yeah.
it can happen. Well, for us, for example, they did it in with web component. The first thing they call, what was it? The Polymer,
Mm.
and nobody used.
Yeah, we have some older ones with Polymer
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
nobody used that. So
Yeah.
it's all work done for nothing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it happens. But I'm also working at a big bank, so nobody cares. Just millions thrown out the window. Nobody gives a fuck. So it's okay. Okay. Cool. Well, it's 8:45. Thank you guys for your present participation and enthusiasm. I wish you a very, very happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you. And I think we all cross our fingers for 2021 to be better than 2020.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Absolutely true.
Yeah. Okay. See you next week.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye, guys.